We are here with the one and only, the pride of Salisbury, Maryland,
Oh,
Janelle Beiler. And
hello, hello.
Janelle, I don't know all of your fancy things that all the alphabet soup that comes after your name. Come on, we want to hear them. No, they're fun. Yeah, what are they? You are
Uh,
a
I'm a pastor. I'm a therapist. I'm a therapist licensed within like nationally NBCC, also by the state of Maryland as an LCPC. I'm a clinical director and so approved supervisor and also a certified thanatologist.
that's a lot of things. Which
Not
one do you
really.
like the best out of all of those? Can you pick one?
Just I like the I like the combination of pastor therapist, like a pastoral psychotherapist. That's what I like
Now,
that.
this is different, would you not agree, than the pastor who is the untrained
Correct.
counselor
Yes,
who
absolutely.
sees people and tries to give advice versus you being someone who's clinically trained? How has that part of your schooling informed the pastoral work that you do?
Yeah, that's cool. So what I love is where the two meet, right? So we need strong pastoral counselors. We need good pastors who know how to counsel their parishioners pastorally. We also need solid clinicians, psychotherapists who are trained. But then, like what I believe and what we're doing at LifeMark is believing you can bring those two together. You can bring the best in Christianity, faith, a Christian worldview, solid theology, and the best in clinical psychotherapy. And when you bring them together, you've got something you don't have with either one or the other.
Yeah. Why this was not on the docket of things that we were to discuss, but I'm curious.
Sure.
Why have some Christians thought that psychotherapy is
Yeah.
dangerous or
Right.
wrong? What is that about?
I don't know. I wish I did. The stigma is way better than it's been a long time, but it's still there. And so people who over spiritualize, well, if you would just pray more, you wouldn't be depressed. Like give
Yeah.
Jesus the victory, everything's fine. It is so damaging, those messages. When you are depressed, you are anxious, you are dealing with significant trauma, just saying, "Oh, pray some more," is cruel. It's so hurtful and misguided. Um, yeah, I think some of it's fear, like we're afraid of things we don't know.
Yeah.
And so when people are going through things that seem bigger than anything we can understand from our own experience, our own studies, it seems scary. It's easy to judge. I think we jump to that quickly, but I don't understand. I wish we could grasp the beauty of how God created us. We are mental, emotional, physical, sexual, spiritual beings, and we are made to be healthy from the inside out in each of those. And so why we can't understand mental and emotional health the way that we honor physical health.
Yeah.
We go see a doctor, and we even go to special, like if I have a problem with my foot, I go to a podiatrist. If I'm having trouble with my inner world, why wouldn't I go see a psychiatrist?
Yeah, you are correct that it seems like, especially in certain sectors of the American church, that stigma is lessening
Mm-hmm.
to a great degree, even around the idea of medications and how
Yep.
effective they can be and how helpful they can be. Um,
Yep.
you
I
know,
would call them grace. It's grace in a pill. It's freedom from the curse. It's God extending grace to us.
yeah, that can be helpful for people to hear who are living in that world of, I don't even know what to call it. I mean, good grief. So I receive therapy, and I was counseled years ago to go on anti-anxiety and depression meds. And I'm a minister, and I know everything that we just said, and it's in the in my heart, and I tell that to people all the time. But when
Yep.
it was given to me, it became oh no, I can work harder, I can be better, I don't need that.
Yeah.
And that went away after a struggle of a handful of months, where I kind of just got to a place where I could accept some
Yeah.
of
Because
myself.
isn't it weird? You wouldn't have done that about getting prescribed blood pressure medication.
No, no,
And
correct.
our brain is
Well, but you just said that. I'm like, well, I could probably exercise more. I probably could. I think there's something in me where it's like, I got to work harder, be better,
Sure.
all that sort
Right.
of
Which
stuff.
speaks to the whole fall issue of like, I can be God.
Yeah.
I can do it myself. I don't need help.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, the reason why you're really here is
Mhm.
because I thought it would be good for us to talk a little bit about some of the grief work that you do, specifically around the you call them camps in the
Mhm.
summertime, grief
Yeah.
camps. Tell me about that because they're specifically targeted for kids that are
Mhm.
wrestling with big losses and big feelings and bouts of grief. Can you explain what that work
Sure.
is and what you've learned through
Yeah.
it?
So Camp Safe Harbor is a beautiful collaboration between Salisbury University and Coastal Hospice, coming together and creating a camp for kids ages 6 to 12 who have had a loss to death. There are lots of different types of loss,
Mhm.
but specifically someone in their close family has died, a parent, a sibling, a grandparent, a step parent. And so it's really neat the way that these two organizations have come together, and it's really fun to do. And for me, brought together like my children's pastor years,
Yeah.
my clinical experience, and the grief work that I've done with hospice all into one place, where we identify and interview kids and families, making sure they're appropriate for the camp. It is held on SU's campus, which is kind of neat. There's a master's level class that is offered, and the students who take that class, their final project is to be counselors at this camp. So they're studying children in grief, and then they get to experience it hands-on and interact with kids who are actively grieving. Coastal Hospice staff come together, already kind of vetted Coastal Hospice volunteers, SU students, SU professors, all coming together and providing this camp. So usually about 25 to 30 campers, usually about 20 to 25 staff. So it's a pretty great ratio. And we have the kids divided up into younger girls, younger boys, older boys, and really do a lot of neat work with them around helping them, one, just tell their story. So the very first night that we invite the families in so that they can just see where their kids are going to be all week. On Monday night, we have this ice cream party, and the families are offered these materials to create kind of a family flag. And on it, they tell their story of their loved one that they lost. And so by the end of the night, they walk in, they're strangers, they don't know each other. By the end of the night, we bring these kids up one at a time. They show their flag. They talk about their loss in front of a room full of strangers they just met. And by the end of the week, these kids are bonded. These families are bonded. And it's really neat to see a kid go from being, I'm all alone, nobody wants to talk about this with me, to realizing, wait, I'm not alone. Like, here's a whole group of kids who are going through similar things. And so the camp helps kids share their story. It kind of goes from remembering to resiliency, giving them therapeutic activities. Some of them are big, fun, physical, like just getting energy out and being able to express in big ways. Others are very pointed, like who's in your boat, is identifying, who are the people in your life who are in this with you, that you trust, that are safe. Um, uh, um, they do like this chain of events activity where they tell the story of it. Like, I was at school, I was in math class, I got called down to the principal's office. My mom was there waiting for me. She drove me home. Once I got home, my kitchen was full of people, and someone told me my dad had died. Like, they get to tell their story, and they get to honor what they've been through, and they get to do it with other people their age who are going through similar things.
Is this usually like step one for a lot of these campers in the process?
It depends where they are in their journey, right? Especially with COVID, we have not been able to have this camp the last 2 years. We're getting ready to have it again the last week of June this year. And so we've got kids on a waiting list who now their loss has been 2 years. We try to keep it where their loss has been within a year.
Yeah.
So it depends. For some, it's too fresh, and we tell them to wait. Like, if it just happened the week before, then you come to a camp, we have to kind of gauge and assess to see whether the family, the student, is ready for that. So for some, it's very fresh. For some, it's very public. These are stories that have been in the news. For some, it's been a year or two, and they've maybe had some family support. They've got guidance counselors who know about what's going on. But for a lot of them, it's the first time where they don't feel alone.
Yeah.
Hmm.
What can you say to parents, caregivers, adults in situations where they might engage kids who have suffered pretty greatly?
Mhm.
I mean, we're not trained counselors. We don't know what you know. We haven't done the program at SU, and we're not getting ready to graduate. So
Yeah.
what can we do to meet these kids where they are?
Yeah. One, we've got to be aware of our own fears and kind of push through them. Like it's honestly kind of scary to approach a kid wanting to bring up something painful. For a lot of people, that'd be pretty scary. So one, I think it's important to notice what's going on inside of you and recognize that what's going on inside that kid is just a glimpse of that, right? So being able to approach a kid in an open, safe way, especially if you already know them, like don't change how you are with them. If you would normally give them a high five or a fist bump on the way in to the classroom or in a church, or if you saw them in the store, like treat them the same way, help them see you aren't freaked out, you aren't changed. Asking open-ended questions, how are you? What's it like right now for you? Not like, are you doing okay? Right. So closed-ended.
Please say yes.
Yeah, right. Which is what that's saying about us, right? So closed-ended questions only offer a yes or a no an answer. So open-ended question, dude, how are you? Like, let them know, like, I've been thinking about you. I've been praying for you. Like, what's it like to be you right now? What's the hardest part? I think people who have been through loss will often say it's hard to hear, what can I do for you? Like, do you need anything? Again, that's more about us because we want to do something. The person who's grieving has no clue. Like, I don't know what I need. Like, I don't know, mow my grass. I don't know. So a kid may not know what they need. So asking them that can be shut down the conversation. But, what's it like? How's school? Like, what's the weirdest part of this for you? Or what do you miss the most? Even telling them, like, man, I really miss your dad. I can't imagine what you must be missing. When you think of him right now, what is it you notice yourself thinking about? Or but just show up, lean in, like, ask. They may shut you down, but it's okay.
Yeah, these are like the things that we're talking about now, like, and I think you even describe them as big losses or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Talk about like the smaller losses with, I mean, you're, as a psychotherapist, you see a lot of kids, and over the last couple of years, we all collectively have lost a lot of things, whether it's time or experiences, or these 2 years of our middle school or high school. Actually, losing a couple years of middle school, I think that'd be all right.
Word.
But what sort of losses have you dealt with, and how can you maybe help us, parents and caregivers, put some stuff in our tool bag to wrestle with some of the things that we all have experienced here collectively?
Yeah. So huge thing for kids is loss at home around parent relationships. So if there's a divorce, a separation, that's a pretty significant loss for a kid still, just in stability, in life as they know it, in their root. Like, I mean, it affects so much. Loss of a pet, loss of a teacher or a pastor who moves away or gets sick, loss of a friend who moves away, loss of a home. I've worked with kids who they moved and they could not handle the loss of the home as they knew it and just need support transitioning to a new house. I don't know, loss of like a sense of safety. Again, if something like there's a house fire or something happened at school and suddenly they don't feel safe anymore. Things that we take for granted, certainly with COVID stuff, loss of ability to choose, loss of ability to go where you want to go without having to think about it. Even loss of, access to people's face. I mean, we've looked at each other like this for a while. That's a loss. That's not nothing. So loss is loss. And we don't get to decide whether it's big or small either.
Yes, that's true.
So for a kid, I don't even remember, but when you're a kid, little things feel big, and it's not, little things are big. So even loss of ability to play sports. Like, I love baseball. I haven't been able to play baseball with my friends for 2 years. That's a loss.
Yeah.
It's not okay. And be like, oh, it's no big deal. You'll get to play again. Like, so I think one thing to watch out for is minimizing and dismissing. So if a kid's expressing to you whether they and I love working with kids, because if they can't do it directly, they'll find an indirect way to let you know they're not okay. Their behaviors are constantly telling us something. If we'll pay attention, if we cannot make it about us, pay attention to what they're trying to tell us, lean in, be like, hey, what's going on? I really miss baseball. Oh, well, and we just want to fix, oh, that's silly. Like, let's go play right now. You're fine. No, no, no. What is he like? Tell me about that. What's going on? Like, I acknowledge it. That's true. I hadn't thought about that. That must be awful. What is it you miss about it? And they're going to start talking. If you're just like, oh, it's no big deal. You'll get to play. Like, I think tryouts are in 2 weeks. Do you see how you've just completely missed like this beautiful way to connect with a kid? Because they will tell you.
Did you do this with your 2 children?
Why, yes, I did. Screw it up, you mean? Like miss it?
No, no, I meant, were you able to be fancy, renowned counselor mom with your children?
I wish. No, and even now as a therapist, it's hard to know. And I've got adult boys now. Like it's still, I can't be clinical with them. I'm their mother, but yeah, that's like one of the big nightmares is what if I'm missing something, or what if they feel like they can't talk to me? Because we want our kids to come to us, right? But I did find I'm ashamed at how long it took me to get there. But like one example I can think of, back in my children's pastor days, and I had 2 young boys, and my husband's also a pastor. So, he's already at the church. I'm trying to get them to the church. And, my one son's like having a hard time getting his shoes on. And I'm like, I'm going to be late. Are you stinking kidding me? Get your shoe on and get in the car. Or I'm, and later I'm like, oh my word. But and as I learned later, like he had sensory, like if the sock was not exactly right inside that shoe, he was not okay. And he's still, as an adult, he's still highly sensitive in some of those ways. Like it was a real thing. If I could have gotten over myself, if I could have been like, dude, you okay? Do you need some help? We'd have gotten in that car just fine without anybody's feelings getting hurt, without me making it about me. Again, like if we can differentiate, like pull ourselves out of the issue so we can look at the kid, they're their own person. They've got their own thing going on. They're clueless about all your stuff. Like I'm children's pastor, and I've got other kids waiting on me, and I need to be in there in time because I have 8 things I need to set up before church even starts. And like they don't know that. They're not intentionally trying to make me a wreck, trying to get out of the house on time. What's going on with you? How can I help you? Well, this sock won't. All right, you know what? Forget about the shoes. Let's just get in the car, and when we get to church, we'll figure it out. We'll take our time. Don't worry about it. I'm all uptight about being late, really, and looking bad. Like shame on me. Like, so I think we do that a lot as parents. I think we do that a lot as adults. We just want kids to do what we need them to do, and we forget they're their own people and they've got very real stuff going on.
What is the answer to this? Because when you talk about this, it's like we had another psychotherapist on a few weeks ago, and it's like you're all are saying these things and they're so obvious and they sound so easy, like, oh, treat your kids like human beings that have needs. But in those moments, and we talked about this before, the recording started, it's like that 10-minute window of getting off the couch, turning off the TV, getting the book bags, getting the water bottles, getting in the car is the worst 10 minutes of my day.
Yes.
How, like when you say it this way, it just sounds so easy. Is there any practical thing?
Sure, absolutely. I think we've got to be in tune with our own stuff. We've got to be in tune with our own inner world and what's going on inside of us so that we know how it's interacting with them. Mm-hmm. So, and we need to include them in the problem solving. We need to not see them as a barrier to getting to what we want to do, which is like get out of the door smoothly.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, who says that's it's fair, but why is that so important to you? And then like problem solving together so that it's like, okay, your kids, you're an expert on your kids, how they're thinking, what affects them. So, part of it is, okay, how do we plan? How do we work together? Because we need to be out the door by 9. Okay. It's 8:30. Guys, heads up. We're about a half hour out. What is it you need? What have we done the night before to pack and be ready? What's already in the car ready to go? Like, it's a lot of times it's our own lack of preparation. It's our own disorganized inner world or outer world that doesn't have the water bottles ready. And then we're mad at them. Mm-hmm. Or hasn't given them the heads up. And we know we've got a kid who can't be like, wait, what? We're going? They need time to prepare. They need a countdown. We need to consider them. We need to consider ourselves, consider them, consider whatever it is we're needing to go do. Like there's a coach, there's a team who's waiting on us, whatever. And talk about it in kind ways rather than just coming from a place of frustration. So acknowledge yourself, acknowledge them individually, what's going on and what are their needs in the moment, as well as honoring the other. And then I think it's important too. I think sometimes it's important for us as parents. I feel like it's really important for all kids to have a memory where their parent was like, you know what? Don't worry about it. You're more important. We can be late. It's okay. They'll wait. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, I think that's hard for us to get over because here's an underlying thing. We believe our children's behavior is a reflection on us.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Whoa. And if that would be an important thing. If we could knock that off, that would help so much. We make them about us. They don't exist for us. They're not about us.
Yes. And this goes from being at school on time and also like, okay, so Abe had this timeline project. I'm single dadding it this week because Kate's out of town. So I was like so proud of myself. This is stupid. I'm a 40-year-old man. I was so proud of myself that I printed off these pictures from Walgreens. We put this thing together, you know, and it's like,
yep.
I wanted to make sure that it was all okay. And this morning he said, I want to add something to it. And I was just like, no, you can't. It's fine how it is. You're going to mess it up. And it's his thing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I feel like that stupid little whiteboard thing with pictures of Abe at the different years of his life was going to not only be something that reflected him, but it reflected me. So it's school, it's church, it's sports. Can I get an amen? It's the sidelines of the soccer team. It's the dugout of the little league. You know, it's like you want your kids to do stuff and be successful because that makes you
successful.
What's wrong with us? Can you just answer that?
That's messed up. And that very thing, if we could get that, we would all instantly be better parents. We would all instantly be better pastors and teachers because it's his project. And look at what was missed in that moment potentially of, oh yeah, tell me what do you want to add? Well, I'm thinking about this. I love it. Do it. Do you see how that's giving your kid a sense of versus like, oh no, it's fine as it is. Well, now we're getting in the message, like my ideas aren't good, my whatever. And we do it unintentionally, but we all have these wounds from that happening to us as a kid.
Yeah.
And so what's more important in that moment, me feeling good as a parent or my kid having a sense of agency and a sense of pride about that little part that he added at the end that made it even better, even though to you it's eye rolly and now it looks awful. To him, it's like, oh, that was awesome. That's the win.
So what you're saying is I induced trauma on my child this morning.
And not any more than I did.
Now we need to go seek clinical psychotherapy together.
No, I'm saying we need to love our kids well, and we need to love them by first, as God is like, he gives us free choice. He gives us free agency. He doesn't, our behavior is not a reflection on him. He loves us enough to let us figure it out. And we need to do the same for our kids. They're not going to get it right. And I need to be solid enough in myself that I can look like an idiot in front of their teacher and not care because I care about my kid more.
Yeah.
But I'm too worried about what my teacher thinks.
Yes.
Whoever thinks.
When you're doing like a lot of this work with kids, clearly, my experience with therapy has involved a lot of, tell me about your dad or tell me about your mom. Mm-hmm. When you're talking to these kids, do you also then bring the parents in to help them identify some of the potential issues that they're bringing to the table?
Sure. Yeah. And I try to be really careful about how I do that because nothing drives me nuts. Not many things drive me nuts more than adults talking about kids in front of kids in a way that is harmful. You know what I mean? So like, I want to have the paperwork that the parent filled out and I want to know what's going on from the parent perspective, but I don't want the parent with the kid, because once the kid comes in, like we're playing, I'm showing what's in the office and what do you want to do? And we're getting Nerf guns and shooting them on my mirror and we're having a good time. So then for a parent to be like, I can't stand, like if this kid doesn't stop that, then I'm going to shut that down in a minute. That is not cool. But because they're a minor too, there's a lot of obviously important confidentiality stuff around therapy. And so you're trying to earn the trust of a kid, and that takes time. You're trying to earn the trust of the parent and help them both have the lay of the land. And I'm not going to tell you everything your kid and I talk about in here. I'm going to keep you informed, but I need we need to have a bond and a safety and a trust that so that I can help, your son or daughter. But then also helping the kid know, listen, like you're 12, like you're not 18. I need, like, so what I do is I talk with a kid about, okay, in about 5 minutes, I'm going to bring your mom back. Anything from today that we've done that you want to talk about, anything that you want to make sure I don't talk about. Cause so you're balancing both at the same time.
Yeah.
Because with kids, it really is building that rapport, building that safety and trust, literally having fun together. You're doing that for a while. But again, if you're paying attention while kids are like building blocks and kicking them down, they're giving you information. They're telling you stuff. I had a kid once, so I would often, depending on the age of the kid, start with a body poster. So the kid gets down on a big thing of paper, and I have the parent trace them before they leave, so it's not awkward. Like, who's this? And then once they leave, we fill it all in. Tell me about what you like to do with your feet, what you like to do with your hands, like who's in your do you love? Do you have any weird dreams? Like, what do you think about? What do you like to smell? What are your favorite smells? What kind of foods you like to eat? What are your favorite music? What do you like? And so I've been with this kid for maybe 20 minutes, and suddenly he's like drawing something over here, like, oh, what's that? He's like, that's my bad brain. I'm like, wow.
Yep.
Like, do you see how they'll just hand it to you? And I'm like, wow, do you have a good brain too? He's like, yeah, you drew that. It's like, what's your bad brain tell you? And he's like, it tells me to do this and this and this. And I mean, they'll lead you to it. They will, through play, through drawing, through reading, through music, Nerf guns, Legos, doesn't matter.
Why is adult therapy so boring? Why can't we also play with Nerf guns and Legos?
Just ask, bring it up, say, what could we do?
I have some friends that like to talk about things like, if your feeling was a color, what would it be? Like people like that. And I know they would get a real kick out of, instead of sitting on that leather couch,
yes,
just doing the thing, sculpt something that shows us
absolutely
who you are.
And there are therapies that do that for adults.
Well, when you go to Psychology Today and you're looking at all the massive things that you can click and point, just let us know what that is. Where's the Lego?
Well, play therapy, creative expression, kind of artistry, mind body stuff is interesting for that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tell me about when, and this is subjective, and I don't know how you can answer this, but I would appreciate your insight. How is a parent to know, or caregiver, or whoever's seeing some things, how are they to know when might be a good time for their kid to sort of move beyond the conversations they're having at home to talk with somebody who is a trained clinician?
What a great question. I think it's important to trust your knowledge of the kid, whatever the relationship is, so that you know what feels kind of normal and within their personality, and what would be a significant change. So if a kid's really outgoing, they love interacting with people, and suddenly they're isolating and refusing to leave the house, that there's something going on. If a kid's a great student, doesn't have to be encouraged to do anything, they just love to learn and they get A's without trying, and suddenly they don't want to do any homework and they're getting D's, we got to pay attention to that. If there's self-harm, and in kids, again, that can look different. Like, I mean, a kid may just bang their head against a wall. They may pull their hair hard. They may literally like kind of hit themselves. We got to pay attention. Like, what's going on? You're like, something's not right. And I think it's important to be like, it's okay to not be okay. Like, I'm not freaked out. Like, something's going on. You're not alone. What's going, like, let's figure it out together. Because that stigma we talked about earlier, like, we've got to normalize that. Like, it is okay. It's part of the human experience to be scared, to be depressed, to be anxious, to feel alone, to believe nobody, like you said, those middle school years, that would be lovely to skip. I find, especially, I was shocked raising boys. I knew the middle school girl thing, but middle school boy thing's no joke either. And it's really like, nobody likes me and I don't want to live. Well, to be honest, that's actually a fairly common thing. It doesn't mean you need to take a kid to the ER. Now, suicidality is also no joke right now, especially in young people. But that is a normal comment to start with. Like, rather be like, oh, don't say that. You can't say things like that. Like, wow, that, like, talk to me. That's big what you just said. And I felt that too. Like, so don't get me wrong. Like, please no, I'm not worried. I'm not freaking out. I felt that too. But talk to me about why you don't want to live. What is it about living that doesn't feel good to you? And then depending on what they tell you, then absolutely get them the help that they need. But major with kids, significant shifts, I think, are important to capture. Eating, sleeping,
Yeah.
those things are going to change. Get like lashing out, being pleasant, and suddenly being nasty. They're telling you something's not okay. Believe them.
Do you think, like as a minister, I've often tried to normalize therapy so much so that I don't necessarily say that people have to have a reason to go talk to a therapist. People
Absolutely.
have plenty of reasons that they may or may not know about. Now, clearly money is a inhibiting factor, but do you think that that same sort of thought process is true for kids too? Like, I don't know too many parents that are like, oh, my kid's fine, but we just love to let them sit with, Janelle and let them explore and learn how to talk and whatever. Is that something that people do? And is it to be recommended, or is that going a bit too crazy?
Wow. So I guess I've got mixed answer to that, because on the one hand, I'm kind of biased like you, where I think anybody could benefit from psychotherapy. It's literally therapy for the soul.
Sounds good.
How cool is that? Like, who wouldn't benefit from taking aside a 45 minutes to an hour a week or once a month just to pay attention to your insides and take care of yourself? Like, yes, do that. Mm-hmm. So yes, I do think people could benefit. What concerns me right now is that, like, the waiting lists, right? So if I'm just being honest, like, if right now I had parents who want me just to kind of chit chat with their kid once a month, but their kid's doing great, everything's wonderful. Yeah. Part of me would love that, because wow, that's a great session. Like, it's just a breath of fresh air and a fun session to have. But I also know I've got like 10 people in crisis who have been waiting 6 months to be seen. That would be the struggle. Do you mean? So yes, I think parents should encourage their kids to think of being intentional about taking care of their inner world, their mental, emotional health, their relationship with themselves, and practice that.
Yeah.
And whether it's a therapist or a good friend or a mentor or a coach or a pastor, or even just doing it themselves. And I think as adults, we need to model that for our kids. If we're like running crazy and never taking 10 minutes to just sit and breathe, how can we expect our kids to do that? So we need to model for them. Listen, taking care of yourself is important. And again, the church. Okay, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. So what's the order? Love God, love yourself, love others.
Don't go too far with that, Janelle, because I think people will lop that last finger off real quick. Like, I don't need to love them. I've got to do self-care. So I'm going to the spot.
That's true. Right. And scripture has things to say about that as well. But it is a shame that we have flipped it, right, to where if I can get other people to like me, and if I can know myself by helping other people and serving and dying to myself until there's no me left, maybe I can feel good about myself, and maybe I can believe God would love me.
Yes.
We do that. And again, those scriptures are true. Like, we are to pick up our cross. We are to deny ourselves. We are to lay our life down for our friend. But we have to first know ourselves and be in a relationship with ourselves to be able to do that.
Yeah. I was just talking with some friends prior to this call. I'm 40 years old, and this was something that came out in one of my most recent therapy sessions. I was just talking about, like the idea of self-care and the idea of knowing myself. And on most days, it's been lost, because, and this isn't, I love my kids, I love my family, but you get in this routine of, oh, well, Monday nights are soccer nights, and Thursday is the baseball, and then we've got the timeline project that I've already discussed, and then we've got and it's like, what do I do? Yeah. I don't know. And then you wake up and you're 7 years down the line, you're like, I've lost who I am. Yes. And that factors into how we parent, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Because we're not even parenting from a solid, true self. So it's that whole, it's almost cringy now how often it's used, but that whole idea of if the oxygen masks come down, you have to first put one on yourself before you can put one on your kid. It used to make me mad. When I had a baby, I was like, are you freaking kidding? And they're like, oh, Okay, I get it. So like, but we really do believe we're doing wrong by taking care of ourselves. And again, you can take it too far. And there are people, and even people talk about this generation, like, oh, I can't work 5 days a week. I've got to do some self-care. It's like our capacity has gotten this big, but it doesn't take away from the fact that I don't believe God smiles over that. I don't think that warms God's heart to see that we have lost our sense of self because we're so busy chasing.
Doing either of those, right? Even loving him. It's like
Yes.
I've
Yes.
loved God so much where I don't even know who I am anymore.
Correct.
And a
Correct.
lot of times the theology is driving the bus where it's like you kind of adopt this angry dad in the sky. You've got to make him happy or else. And that's not cool either.
No, it's not. And so the idea that God smiles over like, no, no, like love me and let how I love you, like let me love you, love me back. Let all that inform how you understand yourself. Yeah. And the importance of yourself. Take care of yourself. And then love other people. Like you love your kids. So you make sure they've got clothes, you make sure they've got food, you make sure they sleep, you make sure they have fun, that they've got friends, that they're learning. Like it's not selfish. And I was in my 40s before I was able to overcome some of that messaging. Hey, and I love my family. I love my church, but the messaging was there is everything else comes first. You're last. And unless that's what's going on, you're not being a good Christian. Yeah. I don't think it's biblical.
No, it's not. No, but the alternative is also not biblical, where I think we've seen a lot of people kind of saying, well, screw all that, family first. And that's the only thing that matters.
Yep.
That's not good either.
No, either extreme is no good. It is about balance. And even there, I don't think it's like you find the balance, you do it. I think you kind of wobble back and forth and somehow stay on the balance beam.
Yeah.
By correcting.
You said something, it wasn't a throwaway comment, but it was sort of like an offhanded comment about suicidality.
Yeah.
Correctly. And maybe even inferring that it's more pronounced now. It feels that way from the outside looking in, as a kid of the late 80s, early 90s, it feels that it is becoming much more prevalent.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have thoughts on that as to maybe what's happening, what we can be aware of, and maybe take it beyond social media is of the devil?
Sure. Sure. So I think we have to realize that suicidality is not it's not someone not caring. Mm-hmm. It's not even necessarily someone giving up. It's someone being in a place where there is no other option. Like life has become to this unsustainable level where it is a relief. I used to think, wow, it must take such courage to do an act like that. Like I could never do that. And yet I think everyone at some point in their life gets to a place where it's like, it would be easier not to live.
Do you think is it fair to say that I forget how you phrased it, but is it that there is no other perceived?
Yes. Option? Yes. Correct. So it's a very like permanent answer to a temporary problem, which is what's so tragic about it. Right. In most cases. I mean, that's for some people, one of the ways I've read about it recently that was helpful to me, and it's heartbreaking, but I think this is a helpful construct, is that we've got to see suicidality as the disease that it is, similar to how there was a shift to seeing alcoholism as a disease. Mm-hmm. It's not poor discipline, it's a disease. Okay. We have no problem seeing cancer as a disease or heart disease. And so like with cancer, there are three options. You can have cancer, be treated, and the cancer is gone. You can have cancer, it not be able to be treated, but you're able to manage the symptoms and live with it. Mm-hmm. Or you die from cancer. And the same is true for mental health. Okay. So there are mental health issues that you can have, they're treated and they go away. You can have mental health issues where they are treated, it's never really going to go away, but you can manage the symptoms and live a great life, but you have to constantly attend to and manage the symptoms. And then there are mental health issues that you die from.
That's hard.
That's so hard, but doesn't it feel true? I mean, I'm not trying to feely like
Yeah.
it's true. And I don't know if you've known people are like, when you just like, it almost felt inevitable. Like there was no other way that
Yeah.
this was going to end. Like the person literally can't tolerate living.
Well, like you see so often on the back end of those, events where people saying, "Oh, I just wish so and so would have reached out," or
I
something like
know.
that. But that's a complete diminishing of what's going on, right?
Correct. Yeah. And it's it's our own attempt to try to have understanding and to make meaning and to deal with our own guilt.
Yeah.
Um, but it's so much bigger than that. But what is alarming right now are the numbers. And I'm sorry, I would have pulled something up and had it ready, but um, of young people who this seems like to, I mean, they're so young and there's so much life left to live, and yet they are already at a place where living does not seem sustainable.
What is that? What? And I doubt you can answer this. I doubt anybody really can. But what has happened? Is it more? Are we more aware now than we were, or has
It
some major shift taken place to get
could
us
be.
into a new spot?
I think we are more aware. I think it's probably all the things. And I think social media is part of it. It's not the devil and the only reason, but we have access and we have intake
Mm-hmm.
at levels that are staggering compared to what you and I grew up in. It's bothering me a little bit that I didn't realize I was 10 years older than you, sitting here at 50, then 40, but also growing up in the 80s, a fine decade. Like we did not have the influx that kids have today. Like there's no room. Like where's the room? And everything feels, I mean, if you think about just even the world, I mean, it just, there's no room, there's no space. Everything is intense. Everything is constant.
Everything is comparable as well.
Sure, which is never good.
No.
Whichever direction you're comparing, it will always not go well. And so we are, it should be surprising because it's a problem from the fall, right? Like we are creating problems we can't solve, and we are believing that we can handle things that we can't handle. Like God was saying in those moments, like, leave that to me, I want to handle that for you, like don't touch that, I'll take care of that. You don't want that. We're like, oh yeah, I do, I think I do want that. Well, so now we have it. And so, kids are being given things, situations, relationships, access that they are not prepared for. I mean, if you think about, I mean, even just what we do with a car and a 16-year-old, like who is smoking that? Like what 16-year-old who doesn't even have a full brain is ready to drive a car? But we've normalized that. And so now we've also got, 10-year-olds who are dealing with stuff they shouldn't even know about until they're 22 because there's access everywhere. And so our brains, our bodies we aren't capable of handling things.
So we talk about like all this stuff that's available, and I know that there's no silver bullet to this conversation with regard to social media about what's right and what's wrong. Every person
Yep.
is
Yep.
different, and wisdom needs to be the application of knowledge in different situations because kids are different, so on and so forth.
Yep. And there are beautiful things about social media.
Correct. Okay, so how do we, like, what's a couple lines from resident psychotherapist Janelle about how to manage being a parent and having kids and cell phones and social media and that sort of stuff? Is there anything that you feel comfortable saying as a generalized statement, knowing that everybody's different, every situation is different?
So the passage in Proverbs comes to mind around like raise a child according to his way. So again, I believe it starts with relationship. I believe it starts with knowing yourself, knowing your kids, knowing their limits, knowing their strengths, knowing what they can and can't handle, and then lovingly including them in the process of, listen, like this is powerful stuff. I get it, but you're also wired to do this. And not in a, we tend to set up in a punitive way. Like you can't have this, you can't have this. You only get so much of this. If you do more, then you're going to lose this. Like rather than leaning into like, do you get like your body is meant to move and you've been sitting here for like 2 days and we know we do it too.
That's it. It's okay. So Jude was making this little Lego diorama. And this was months ago. I'm talking like core pandemic time. So we're all in
Mhm.
the house, and although I think he would probably do something similar now, but he's putting this little diorama of the house together. He builds
Nice.
a Lego bathroom, puts a minifig on the toilet, and says, "That's Dad in the bathroom with his cell phone."
Both cool and ouch. Yep.
They see, and I've heard stuff from the kids, and sometimes I want to pay attention to them, and I want to do what you're telling me to do. I want to honor what they're saying. I want to believe them.
Mm-hmm.
So I will. And they say things like, "Your phone is more important to you than we are." Like, that's a direct quote. Sometimes.
Seriously?
Yes.
Oh, please
So,
listen.
I
They're not out of the mouth of babes, right? Like they're telling you what they feel.
And I don't always know what to do with that. But if we're setting that context at home, it's no wonder why a lot of kids lay around on the couch, because from 6:15 until 7, when they go to bed, I am in the chair, my chair off to the side, looking at baseball cards on eBay. Guilty.
As a way to self-soothe, to like, that's in some, I mean, that could be self-care for you. It's like, I need to check out. I need to.
More self-medication, I think, than it is self-care, because at the end of it, I don't feel rejuvenated or better about myself or the world. It's just like, I need to trance out here for a moment and do this. And they see
again, if we can be honest with ourselves and honest with them, be like, thank you so much for telling me. You are absolutely right. And I struggle. Like, this is hard. And this is why. Like, this is why you always see me on my phone. And you're absolutely right. I need to. And then imagine what it could be. On my phone. Oh, yeah. To be like, you know what? I am so sorry. What'd you say? And put it down. And then not touch it for 2 or 3 hours. And at the end of the night, be able to say, guys, I had so much fun with you. Like, thank you for pointing out that whole phone thing. I'm going to work on it.
Yeah, that's good.
And we're going to work on it together. Like, I choose you over this phone every day of the week. And I need to start showing you that.
I'm so stupid, Janelle. I say things like, give me one thing to do. And then we can explore through a 20-minute conversation that my kids tell me what to do. So like, kids from, dinner time until they go to bed, cell phone in the basket.
Yes.
And I'm present.
Yep.
And that's a thing that I'm a checklist guy. So I like having, things in order and action steps that I can do, because I don't trust myself just to feel my way through certain situations. Yeah, but there you go. There's one easy thing that I could do. And I think that we all could find maybe things like that.
Sure. And enter into their world. That's the other thing, is like, we're constantly forcing kids to join our adult world. Do what I need. Do what I, get on the floor and do the Lego thing with them. If they're playing a video game, like, sit and watch and ask questions and tell them how cool the music is and how impressed you are at the way they can do all that. And play with it. Yeah, I would be able to do that. But yeah, I mean, I can't do what they're doing. Instead of just like, video games bad. Like, no, like, tell me about the storyline behind this one. What's going on? Or, oh, is this like that? Like, sit beside them and watch. Enter into their world. Whatever they like it too. I mean, even like, I don't like NASCAR and golf. I watch a lot of NASCAR and golf. Why? Because my husband likes NASCAR and golf.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
So I enter into that. That's what love does, right? Is I'm going to focus on you. That's what dying to self, like, I'm going to set aside what I want to do, which is sit here and look at baseball cards on eBay. And I'm going to lay on my stomach on the floor and play Legos for 3 hours.
Oh, that sounds like a long time. Now we can circle back and say what we just talked about, entering into their world, is relevant to grief conversations and love conversations and anything else that our children are going through. If we're present and we're available and they know that, and there's trust, we have some good foundational steps, right?
Absolutely. And again, isn't it a beautiful expression of incarnation? Like, God came down, he entered into our world. He has shown us all these things. Like, how do I enter into your world? And how do I just love you there instead of trying to fix you there? Yeah.
Oh, it sounds so easy. And it's
Doesn't it?
so hard once you're in those situations. This has been good. I would like to ask your opinion on finding a therapist, either for parents who might need one or for parents of kids who might need one.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're booked up until Kingdom Come.
I know.
And no, don't feel bad about that. I don't want you to feel bad. I mean, you can't be all things to all people.
Yeah. Well, do you see how it's unethical? Because if it's like, yeah, sure, sure. And then it's like, you've got someone in crisis. Well, I can't, like, yeah, I've started working with you, but we're only going to see each other once every 3 months because I got to fit all these other people in. Like, it
And
is. It's
also, like,
awful.
you're a person, like
Yeah.
you can't
Sure.
10 hours, 12 hours a day because you have to
Yeah.
be a whole functioning
Yeah.
human being to be a halfway decent
Sure.
therapist. But for the rest of us out there in the world that are attempting to find someone, and I don't know if this is weird for you to do, like as an employee of LifeMark,
No,
can you give us clues on how to find
absolutely.
therapists? And also add this into the mix as well. Um, Sometimes maybe more progressive minded Christians struggle to connect with Christian therapists.
Yeah.
So is there ways to like sort of widen that search and
Yeah.
help people? But also there's folks that we don't have any idea what we're doing, and we don't even know what somebody said. First thing you should figure out is like, do you want a woman or a man? I was like, I have no idea. Like, how do
Yeah.
you
Sure.
how do you get through all of that, and how can you start seeing therapists to get healthier?
It's good. The therapeutic alliance is like 80 to 90% of what determines success in therapy. You've got to like the person. There's got to be a fit. You've got to click. And if you don't, find another one. I always like, and a good therapist is going to say that, like in an intake session, I'm just like, listen, if I remind you of your Aunt Crystal and you can't stand her, like I'll help you find somebody else. You've got to. I was like, one session's not enough, but by 4 or 5, if you're dreading coming, if you just feel like, I don't know, like, I will help you find the right person. We have got to click in order for this to work.
Yeah.
And same's true for therapists. I've never had to do it, but it could be reversed where like the client is triggering in some way. And so you need to find someone better for them because you're not going to be able to be what you need to be for the person. So finding the right fit, and forgive me for this, but women who are watching or listening, it's like shopping for the right bra or the right jeans.
That's very relevant to me, Janelle.
It is. It's very painful, but once you find the right one, you're like, yes, it was so worth it. And you get 10 of them. Okay. So I often equate that for finding the right therapist. It may take time to find the right therapist. It's worth it. Find them. And don't feel badly if it takes a while, because it does take a while. Psychology Today, which you mentioned, you put in your zip code, you can scroll through. You're looking for the kind of licensure they have. If that's important to you, you're looking for what kind of insurance they take. You're looking whether the issues you're wanting to work on are their specialties or not. You're looking for like approaches they have to therapy, and maybe you want to do some research on them and make sure it's something you're comfortable with. And then you call to see if they're taking clients. I tell people now, get on waiting lists. Just get on 5 of them and see who calls you first, but don't not get on the list. Do it. Determine whether it needs to be a Christian counselor or not. You can get solid clinical therapy as a believer from a non-believer and address your issues. Or if part of it is spirituality or faith or God, God stuff, church stuff, and you need to be able to sit with someone who gets all of that and knows that language. If you want your therapist to be able to pray with you or share scripture with you, then specifically look for Christian therapy. Now, there's bad Christian therapy. I am shocked. Like, I'll have clients.
Why are you shocked? Why are you shocked?
Oh, I don't know. I shouldn't be, but I think the best, because I'll have clients who are, we've been working together for months or years now. And they're like, oh my word, I had a Christian therapist, and all she would ever do was quote scripture to me and then start telling me about her own story and her testimony. If your therapist is talking more than you are, it's not a good therapist. If your therapist is making it about them, it's not a good therapist, Christian or non-Christian.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So look for someone who is knowledgeable, who is able to share space with you comfortably and not make it about you. You're going to walk in and you're going to feel freedom. It takes, again, a while to build that trust, but it's a place where you get to say whatever you want. You don't have to edit yourself. You don't have to worry about what they're going to think afterward. You just get to be. And when you leave, it stays there, and it's going to be there when you come back next week or next month. It's a beautiful thing, but it's got to be the right therapist. They need to be qualified. They need to be competent, and trust your gut. I mean, it sounds terrible when you're scrolling through Psychology Today or whatever, like look at pictures and get a feel, like read their bio. And if you're like, trust that and don't go there. Ask friends, like talk, like, who have you heard about? Who's good? And get on their waiting lists. It's worth the wait. If you're in crisis, like call and let the person know. I mean, let the front desk know, whatever. Like this is, I'm in crisis. If it's truly like life-threatening crisis, go to the hospital.
Yeah.
But I am, as with many things here in the Eastern Shore, we are underserved. The other thing to know about Christian agencies, and part of what LifeMark's trying to be, how we're trying to be different, is often Christian agencies won't deal with insurance because it really is a pain.
Mm-hmm.
But that makes it unaffordable and inaccessible to a lot of people. So at LifeMark, we are a Christian agency, but we bill insurance. So you can pay your $10 or $15 copay, depending on what your situation is, and have solid, good therapy. And we need more of that. We do.
Oh, that's helpful. We should also mention too that with Psychology Today, there's a lot of pretty good filters, so you can click the boxes of things. So if your main thing is anxiety or depression, you can click those, or anger management or whatever else, and then some
trauma, grief
people come up. I have found that there's a lot of therapists who think that they specialize in all of the things.
Yes.
They're like, I need clients. Of course, I'm good at.
Yeah. No.
I've got red flags when I see that.
And again, I mean, any therapist who's licensed has been trained, minimally in all the things, but there are people who are specialists, and don't be afraid to seek them out. And can we talk about telehealth, right? So now you potentially have access to therapists in Arizona who might specialize in what you're looking at. And depending on your insurance, you might be able to see someone remotely who specializes. So there are a lot of opportunities now that we didn't have a couple of years ago.
Yeah. In some of the few ways that COVID has been helpful, it's, been pushing us to explore even things like this. Like we're on Zoom chat. I didn't know about Zoom in 2019, and here we are.
Here we are.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. This has been helpful. I would love to get you back on at some point and pick your brain on other things, because you're such a wealth of knowledge. I appreciate your time. Would you like to leave our parents and caregivers with any parting words of wisdom?
Yes. Like, trust yourself, trust your gut, look for the teachable moments, and don't be afraid. Like, speak up, ask the question, lean in. Don't force it, but if you will let them come to you, and if you'll pay attention, listen, there are some beautiful things to capture, and it builds relationship, it builds connection. Trust it, trust yourself, trust your love for your kids, and don't be afraid to mess up and tell your kids you're sorry.
That's very
helpful. You can do better, that you're struggling too.
Yep, that's very helpful. Okay. Thank you so much for the time. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.